Good evening, everyone. I call the order of the October 16, 2017 meeting. Will you please rise, remove your hats for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Today is a historical day in the town of Stoughton. It's the biggest amount of money this town has ever borrowed. The town is moving in a positive and forward direction that no one has ever seen before. So I'd like to thank all the speakers prior to coming up tonight. Mr. Anastas, thank you for changing everything around. The town has never seen anything much better, so thank you. Consent agenda, signature of bonds and borrowing, and adopt the finance policy. Is there a motion on the signatures for the borrowings and the bonds? Gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we move the consent agenda to after the appointments.
Can do that.
So that we can ask questions of any of the presenters.
Is there a second on that? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Mr. Anastas, I will turn this over to you now, sir. Cynthia.
Okay, well, let me, if I may, so you want to move down? Is that what we're going to do?
Please, yes. We're going to go to appointments first on 8.
All right, so if we're going to do that, if you don't mind, I would like to start with the MIA update from Reggie Kowalczykowski, and then we'll move on to appointments, if that's okay.
Yep.
That way we can get Reggie through her part of it. So why don't we do that first? And I know that there was a correspondence, Mr. Chairman, regarding the MIAA. I have
that. Do you want me to read it? Or?
Yeah, I thought you may want to read that, if you would.
So we are pleased to recognize and concerted efforts made by Reggie and the department heads have earned the MIA award credit of $38,200 for fiscal year 2017. The credits have been earned by the town employees participating in education throughout the year to reduce or minimize loss. They participated in numerous training, which included emergency vehicle operation course, driver simulation course, ALIS training, and many more. The town continues to be active in quarterly risk management and safety meetings to address the implement changes that improve overall success of the town. We look forward to working with the town of Stoughton in fiscal 2018. So thank you, everybody. Reggie, congratulations on this, because it's a great thing. Like it says, today's a great day for the town of Stoughton, so thank you again. Mr. Derek.
Reggie, did you want to give a quick update for the Board of Selectmen so that, or are we all set? Your call.
So just as a quick overview, I did submit a packet. I left it on your desk tonight. It's got a quick overview of our FY18 program. It just started in July. It runs through May. And basically, it kind of outlines everything that we as a town can try to achieve in savings, from our automobile to public officials to general liability, as well as property. And basically, I work with all the departments in order to go down this list, see what we qualify as a town, and then we submit the rewards to Maya. And in May, this is the monies that gets handed over to us based on what our participation was. So it's really, what it is, it's a voluntary incentive program which is offered to all the cities and towns that are part of the Mass Interlocal Insurance Agency, and it's a commitment to keeping the communities safer and fiscally stronger. So basically, we've implemented here in Stoughton our risk management and safety measures, as well as some administrative procedures that have reduced the risk of our accidents and property damage, which in turn results in these rewards. In addition to that, our employees have participated in multiple training, and it promotes the effective management and safety operation of all our departments. So as you know, last year we were the recipient of $38,000, which is up from $31,000 the previous year, and that money is credited to our FY18 insurance premium. So this year our premium was $702,000. We had a $38,000 credit in rewards. We also had a 3% prepayment discount of $20,000, and basically that is, if we pay the premium by July 15th, it results in a savings to the town. So we did do that, and by participating in this voluntary program, they gave us an $8,000 credit, which is a percentage of all the towns in Massachusetts that participate. We all get a credit from that share. And that's pretty much it. It's quite a lengthy packet, and I'd be glad to go over it with any of you if you had any questions on it. But we're just starting the program now. So it'll take place now and end in May.
Reggie, are there any meetings on this? Do you guys do any meetings on this?
We do have a safety committee group, and we meet quarterly, and it's usually the police, fire, DPW, and a few other departments. The town manager sits in on that, and we just assess the town's responsibilities and where we think we can improve.
If that happens again, like the next quarter, can you let me know, or this quarter still? It's not, hasn't been done yet, let me know about it.
I'm sorry?
I like to sit on it, so next time you have it, let me know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Reggie, this is a new program that the town just implemented?
It's a program that's been offered to the town for the past couple of years, but we've been more aggressive in the past couple of years, and this past year was a very aggressive year for us. So we hope that this year coming up, we do better than the 38,000.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think what I'd like to do before we introduce the folks that are here, I wanted to introduce some staff and some other folks if I could. But I think one of the things that I'd like to just say is, I think you're right. This is a big deal. It is for our community historic. The project that this town has undertaken is significant. There are lots of people who have contributed to making this successful. This is sort of the final piece. This is the piece that brings the whole thing together, the financing component. You know, I think to some extent we don't talk about it, but it's a commitment from one generation to the next to provide them the best educational opportunities. And that's something that all of us that are participating in this process should be pleased with. So I wanted the opportunity to say that, and I also wanted to thank the Board of Selectmen to have the opportunity to work with you and for you on this really interesting historic project that I think is in many ways transformational for our community. So I wanted to have that opportunity to thank you, gentlemen, and appreciate your support over the last 3 months. I think now I'd like to introduce our financial team who did all the heavy lifting. And if they wouldn't mind coming up and sitting in front, and then we'll bring on Cinder. But if I could, I'd like to introduce our treasurer, Paula Newt. Paula, would you stand? Paula's been in the financial services industry for 30-plus years. She's certified as a Massachusetts multiple collector and Massachusetts multiple treasurer from the Mass Collector Treasurer Association. She has all kinds of experience, and she serves as our town treasurer collector and is instrumental in this process. I also wanted to introduce our Director of Assessing, Joseph Gibbons. Joe's a Holy Cross grad. He has 25 years of experience in assessing and appraising. Another important critical member of the team that helped put this package together. Sue Herman is also part of our team. Sue has a wide variety of experiences, including she was an analyst for a very large mutual fund company. She was a member of the Needham Finance Committee, professional staff of that finance committee, a town accountant, a Suffolk University diplomaed person, and she is our internal auditor, another member. And then lastly, the person who heads up our financial team is Mr. Rowe. And I think most of you know Bill Rowe's been with us in Stoughton as our town accountant since 2002. He's a licensed Massachusetts CPA since 1994, Bentley University graduate. and Bill's done just a terrific job. So I wanted to bring the team forward, and then we'll try to answer questions for the board regarding this. We happy to field anything, and then lastly, maybe Cinder, you might want to come to the microphone, is we have the privilege in Stoughton of being advised by Cinder McNerney. Cinder has been in the financial world for over 40 years. She serves as the managing director for First Southwest, who has advised us for many, many years. And in fact, her company and Cinder advise 150 cities and towns and districts in the Commonwealth. So we are very privileged and pleased to have her here. And so what I thought the best way to do this, to give the board the best understanding of what we've done, is to have the professionals answer the questions. I think I'd like to just frame it in the simplest terms, is we had some difficult decisions to make. When to borrow, how much to borrow, timing, things of that nature. And the team got together and decided that the best thing that we could do is to try and figure out if, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. You can sit, absolutely, please.
Sure, right here.
Please, I'm sorry, and welcome to
Yes.
Town of Stoughton.
So we had a series of meetings, and we tried out a bunch of different scenarios and strategies, and we concluded that this was the best one for our community. We relied heavily on the advice of Cinder and others, and I think we did very well, and we'll have a couple of slides that Bill will show you a little later that support that very positive outcome. So, Bill, you might want to come up here as well, and in the event that you want to get to your slides at some point. And I thought that maybe we could, since we've sort of taken this a little bit out of order, maybe the best thing to do is have Cinder talk about what we've done and how we have arrived at the $84 million and the ramifications of that. So with that, Cinder McNerney.
Well, my name is Cinder McNerney, and I'm, as Stephen said, I'm a managing director of First Southwest Company in Boston. We are the company that took over 17 years ago the Fleet Bank New England public finance franchise, and we provide financial advisory services throughout the country. I've been in the business for 43 years at this point, providing financial advice, and I've been working with Stoughton the entire 43 years. Which is pretty interesting. Congratulations on a terrific sale. This town did great, not only in terms of accessing the market. It received 11 bids on this bond sale. It was there was a lot of competition. The cover bid was 1 basis point behind the winning bid, and there were only 10 basis points spread between the best bid and the lowest and the highest, I should say, highest bid. Mesereau Financial is who bought the bonds, and normally we don't see more than probably 5 or 6. We sell a lot of bonds. We probably originate about 100 bond deals in a year, maybe 250 note deals in a year, a couple $1 billion worth of debt. We sold other bonds last week that were a smaller size than this. This received a lot of attention, not only because of the size of the issue and the structure, but also because the town used multiple ratings on this issue because of the size of it. We used 2 ratings, Moody's Investor Service, which is the rating agency the town usually uses historically, and we also needed a second rating in order to broaden the distribution for this size transaction. And the town received an upgrade from Moody's from a AA3 to a AA2, and it received a first-time rating ever from Standard & Poor's, which is AA, which is commensurate with the AA2 rating it got from Moody's. So those are near the highest quality credit rating. AAA is the best, AA1, and then AA2, which is where the town is, and it got the same AA from Standard & Poor's, which is a real affirmation of the strength of the credit and the debt exclusion. The debt exclusion on this bond issue was a very big plus, that the town was willing to pay for what it valued in terms of this, primarily most of the project out of the entire issue, almost all of it was for the high school construction project, which was the debt exclusion. And that helped not only the rating agencies relative to the credit, but also investors are very pleased to see any kind of a debt exclusion bond from Prop 2.5 in Massachusetts. The TIC was a 269 on this transaction, which is the true interest rate is a 269 for 20-year debt. I know that the town had originally represented to town meeting at the time the debt was authorized, that it was hoping for a 3.5% rate on 20-year debt. A lot of municipalities are trying to accelerate the issuance of debt on large projects like this to take advantage of this market, especially with the expectation that rates are and have been actually increasing some, but with the expectation that rates are going to continue to increase as soon as the feds can do that, but as soon as potentially December. This was an opportune time to issue the debt. Great appetite for this particular bond sale. I'm not sure what else I can say. The town management came together in a very concerted effort, both with regard to the rating presentation, but also with regard to the diligence that was required to structure this bond transaction. There's over 55 purposes in this deal. Each one had to be structured separately. There were different considerations. There's new laws that have gone into effect since the Governor's Modernization Act in November of 2016, which impacted this issue in a big way, since this issue generated about a $7 million bond premium, and that had to be allocated by fund within what was going on. The town had to answer and satisfy legal requirements for all 55 projects. We needed to look at cash flows associated with all of the issuance. The town did look at whether or not, whether or not it wanted to go longer or whether or not there were other considerations to consider. We considered a lot of different options. We looked at all of the analysis associated with each. The fact that the town could bring this in at so far below what was the expectation of town meeting is, kudos to all of you and town meeting. It's a great deal. It's the largest deal the town has ever done. It's a large deal for any municipality in Massachusetts to issue $80 million worth of debt at one time. Others do it when they can because for one reason or another, a lot of municipalities don't have the capacity to do that. So it worked out great from our perspective.
Thank you. Did you want to ask questions? And then there are a couple of slides that...
I do. I'd like to say thank you. I'd like to thank this board. At least 4 of us have been on the board for a while now, so credit to the board. Thank you guys, because this is a big thing for the town of Stoughton. Thank the taxpayers and the residents who went out and vote. I know I voted. My daughter will be one of the first graduating class from the school 2020. It's a great new thing for the town. And it's even better, the taxpayers, the rate is even much better for our residents. That's the biggest thing we're here for, is to, get the best bang for our buck, and we actually did get that best bang for our buck. So as the chairman of the board of selectmen, I want to thank you guys. Thank you very much, and our staff that put this together. Thank you all. You've made the town of Stoughton a proud place. You've made, I guarantee, our residents a proud place. This is what it's all about. We're going to have a brand new high school 2 years. Next year we'll have a brand new library. This town was moving forward in the right direction, so thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you, everybody.
Bill, maybe if you would, you can do a quick update and maybe show some slides. I think the slides sort of tell the story. If you can, everyone see that all right?
Eric, can you get that on TV so the people at home can see this? Because that's a big thing. I know people can't really see it that good. This is a major moment, so.
So based upon the current tax rate, we tried to do a projection of what the tax would be for $200,000, $300,000, and $400,000 home. So this is what we're looking at. The average home assessment was $307,075. So for that type of house, it should be a maximum tax impact of $387 a year. And again, These are based on the current year tax rates.
No, Bill, that's the original slide.
I'm sorry, yes.
So, yeah,
That's what I
this is
thought,
the
yeah.
slide that was
So this-
presented to
Wait,
town
yeah, that's the
meeting.
old,
This is the, this was the presentation from the Stoughton High
that's for
committee.
3.5, correct?
Yeah,
Is it?
that's
Okay.
right. 3.5%.
And it's the
So,
2016 tax rate as well. It's the lower tax rate.
Yep, okay. And
There we go.
so this is what we're estimating that the tax would be for $218 versus $252 for a $200,000 home, $326 versus $378, and then $435 for a $400,000 home. So the rate that we got on the bonds, just the difference between the 2.69 and the 3.5, it's made a little bit of a difference in the impact on the taxpayer going forward, so. And again, I want to mention, these are at our current rates, so the actual amounts are going to be different when we set the tax rate for 18.
And the decrease is about 14%, which is sizable.
Right. So. And this is just a graphical presentation of it. So that's about it.
Yeah.
Take questions.
You guys have questions, and then if you want, we can work backwards to the financial policy, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Paula can respond to some of those questions, so.
First of all, I'm gonna know how many hours and long, hard work you guys did to do this, because I'd be pulling my hair out by now, and
Well,
what hair I
55
have left, it'd be definitely scary.
Yeah, 55 different issuances, and bond counsel wanted to know what the spending schedule, how much we spend, how much we expect to spend on each one of those individual projects, because bond counsel is there to ensure that the bonds that we sell are going to remain interest-free, tax-free federal income tax, because God help us if we make a mistake and we don't use the bonds for a particular purpose, and all of a sudden some investor says, hey, the IRS says, hey, investor, that interest you deducted on your tax return is interest-free, now that's taxable, we're going back 10 years or 3 years, whatever. Picture the ramifications on the town if we had to face that investor in court. So that's why bond counsel is there, and that's why they, very, very demanding, a lot of detail. And you think you have all the questions answered, and then, a day later, I'll get another email from Cinder, they want more stuff. So very, very complicated, but it was good outcome, so that's good.
Mr. Sullivan, any questions?
Sure. Can you briefly just give an overview of why you guys structured the debt in the way that you did with varying annual increments? Anybody?
Well, the high school is level service, and the rest of the purposes are declining balance. So level service would be like your fixed monthly mortgage payment. It's pretty much the same payment each year, and spread over the life of the bond. The other projects are decreasing. Is the library level service? No, the library is decreasing. Equal principal, yeah, equal principal or level debt service. So the other projects are equal principal, and they were structured that way, Cinder, because
Well, the 55 projects are all broken down by, purpose, and each purpose has a different estimated useful life, and we had to, so by law, state law dictates the maximum term that any purpose bond can be sold, and then we had to reduce each purpose by the time any bans had been outstanding. The only new money in this issue, so out of the majority of the issue was new money school. There were some school bans outstanding. The additional new money was the library component, but the rest of everything had bans out for the exact amount of the bonds that were sold. So we structured each of those projects by the estimated useful life minus the time the bans had been outstanding. So some of them went for 3 years, some for 4, some for 7, some for 10, And the only one that was issued like a mortgage payment, which is level debt service payments, is the high school bond, and that was done that way because that was represented at town meeting, that there would be equal annual impact, that it would be approximately the same cost every single year. Although, as Bill just mentioned, that'll change as the tax rate, fluctuates as you go forward for the next 20 years. It'll change a little bit. But that's basically what we do, is we structure each purpose separately, and then we aggregate it all together and sell it as a single bond.
Can you just briefly describe, I'm not really familiar with the bond sort of bidding process. Can you just give an overview? Do you basically just award based on whoever provides the highest value, or are there other considerations that go into that? You mentioned 11 different bidders.
Right. Well, so we put together with the town, it's a pretty intensive process for the last month, especially for something like this. This was grueling, really, in terms of the detail. But we put together a disclosure document. It's called the official statement. We put that together with the town. That discloses the local economic conditions of the town, the finances of the town, the debt of the town, and the property tax information about the town, including some other things about unfunded pension, unfunded OPEB, litigation, if any, and then the details about the bond issue itself. So we do put some constraints in the notice of sale that we create that's in connection with the official statement that's used to advertise the sale of the bonds. The advertisement goes out probably a week before we take bids on an issue like this. We're simultaneously coordinating getting the rating call going and having that meeting and answering all the rating questions, satisfying bond counsel with regard to legal requirements in advance of that for all these projects. Like Bill said, making sure that each project is tax exempt and duly authorized. When we mail out the disclosure document, we control to some extent what's going to happen with the bidding, because we don't want, we want to control what happens. And by that, we have multiple coupon rates on the bonds. That's been allowed for a number of years, but we did on this particular bond issue cap the coupon at 5%. The higher coupon on the bonds results in a big premium that's given to the town, and that premium under the Governor's Modernization Act is now required to be used to reduce how many bonds are sold. So we restructured the deal the day of the sale. Took a couple hours to restructure every single purpose within the deal based on the coupon rates that came in. But we do make the award based on the true interest rate, which takes into consideration the time value of money as opposed to the net interest rate, which you might see on a note deal that's only going out for 1 year, but on a multi-year bond transaction, we award the deal based on the true interest rate, and that's a standard in the industry. Everybody is familiar, so the notice of sale sets forth the details. And once we took the bids, they come in electronically, and it's as soon as the bids come in, we verify the winning bid, which is the lowest TIC. And once it's verified, we would verify the cover bid also. And we make a verbal award. That's the expectation in advance of the sale. And then from there on, it's a question of processing the delivery of the bonds, which is due to happen on the 19th.
So that true interest rate, is that the 2.69% that we got?
Correct.
Okay, and what did you say that the sort of the spread was on the different bids that we received on that interest rate?
About 10 basis points, 1/10 of 1%.
Now what about,
Sorry, thought this was off. Should have been off.
the other day at the, I think it was the high school building committee, the contractor came in well below what the guaranteed max price was. I think it was maybe $6 million below what the average, what the estimate was. How does that get factored into the bonds that we're taking out? Did that get factored in, or do we still borrow for whatever authorized amount we had approved at town meeting?
We took a look at the total estimated project cost, and we took a look at the Mass School Building Authority preliminary grant approval on this project, and we didn't consider whether or not there's any ineligible costs. So to the extent that there's ineligible costs, you may need more. It's possible that you could need more money than you're getting now. But we took into consideration, we assumed that you will get exactly the maximum grant that you could get from the Mass School Building Authority. To the extent you don't get that much grant, then you might need more money. But to the extent you don't need contingencies, you might need a little less. But it's, so we borrowed as much as bond council was comfortable with us borrowing against the authorization based on total project cost less the estimated MSBA grant monies that were coming in. So we had a full discussion as to exactly how much should be issued. We also looked at the cash flow projections for the project, and the high school was the one that we spent the most amount of time taking a look at closely. But we did show, I mean, before the town sells debt, we structured it, but it all has to be approved by bond council. When we restructure, it has to be reapproved by bond council. It has to be, all 55 projects have to be vetted.
So are we taking into account the full amount of contingencies in the high school construction project?
In terms of the amount that was borrowed, you are, but you're assuming that that every single dime is going to be eligible for reimbursement from the MSBA of the total project cost, which is probably unlikely.
Sure.
And also, that $6 million number that you heard about, there was a contingency already built in. So there's some improvement over the contingency that was already built into that number, but there still remains some variables when we start taking the old high school down, and so that's why there's a contingency there, but they've done a terrific job and going out and working towards the maximum guaranteed price.
And has everything been bid to this date for that construction project?
Essentially, yeah, I think Joel might be able to answer. There might be a few loose ends, but it's over 90%, and I think, so we're close. Yeah, I mean, that's close.
Do you want me to? There is, next spring, the premium on the high school, what we did with the premium that came in, which in the aggregate was about, I'd have to look at, let's just say 6.5 million. That had to be allocated by fund and by the debt exclusion. So the high school project, the premium that's allocable to the high school project was used to reduce how many high school bonds were sold. The premium in the general fund, non-debt excluded, that includes the school non-debt excluded bonds, that was allocated to reduce just the library component. The water premium will be given to the town and will have to be appropriated at a later date for a new water project. And the golf enterprise, there was a small golf project that's got a very small premium that will have to be appropriated by town meeting for some kind of golf project in the future. The town will be asked at the spring town meeting to appropriate the premium that came in, both for the high school, the general fund, including the non-debt excluded school, for the water, and for the golf enterprise fund. It's something that will have to happen in connection with the Governor's Modernization Act, just a house cleaning, really, but it is confusing. So that's something that should happen at the spring town meeting. And that will allow the appropriation of more money from that premium that you're going to get on the delivery of the bonds for the high school project and the library project in particular.
Sure.
And we'll get you the language from bond council, and we'll also give you all the detail so that you have that for that Springtown meeting.
Sure. Final question from me. Can you briefly just describe what went into our increased bond rating? Why was that, how was that decision determined?
Go ahead.
Did you get the two ratings that I sent via email?
Did this afternoon.
Okay, all right.
And I read the summary, but I'd love to just hear it rehash one more time.
When you come right down to it, it's just increase in surplus year after year. We had a $1.6 million increase increase in general fund balance this year. So we've had consistent increases in fund balance year after year. It's just basically unexpended appropriations and actual revenues in excess of estimates. We try to, as you know, we try to be conservative with our local receipts estimates each year, and we've been lucky they've been coming in, it's basically the economy. So the actuals have been coming in higher than estimates, and that generating a surplus. So we hope it continues for 17 and 18 as well, so.
I agree with that. The rating is basically a composite rating that's weighted based on management, financial results, the local economy, the state economy, and the debt profile. And the town scored out really well on all of that. And I think there's probably still some opportunity. You've got policies that you're practicing right now, fiscal policies, to the extent those are adopted, may provide an opportunity to move the rating even further, at least with Standard & Poor's in the
So that's
not so
the
distant future.
rationale for, under the consent agenda, the adoption of some best practices, some policies. Some of those policies had to be, which are policies we've had or practices that we've had, they had to be formalized to, in order to get S&P to rate us, and that may have had an impact on the upgrade with Moody's as well. So that's why we're looking for the board to review those policies and those best practices and formalize what this team put in place over the last few weeks. Basically, they took what we did, put pen to paper, communicated with the agencies, got some direction from Cinder and others, and so I think that absolutely had an impact on the ratings increase.
I'm just sort of wondering out loud here what if we were to continue with short-term borrowing as opposed to this long-term 20-year borrowing that we're about to implement potentially? What if we adopted the financial policy tonight and then went in for a new bond rating in a year? Is there going to be that much of a variability on bond rating over 1 year?
I don't think you're going to, no matter what you do, I don't think you're going to see an increase in the rating in 1 year, in the next year. I think that this was the first time Moody's had looked at the town in a couple years. So they were very pleased with, steady progress of the town and what you've done most recently with fiscal policy. Standard & Poor's had never rated the town. I don't think that you could, I think if you waited a year to sell the debt, that you would see rates higher than the rate at which you borrowed today.
Because of what the market is doing?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, rates have been coming down for 20 years. They've definitely been on the move up.
Sure. Well, thank you. I think I've taken up enough of the questions at this point, so thank you.
Mr. Cohen.
For our team, thank you. I know you worked hard at it, a lot of long hours, and it paid off. $6.5 million. It's quite a bit of money we saved, and thank you. Appreciate it. I mean, you're like a regular, we might as well put you as a resident here, 41 years working for the town of Stoughton. Question I have, the $6.5 million that we got out of this extra from going from 3.5 to 2.69, we're going to get total payment of $84 million right off the bat at a certain time. We borrowed all our money at one time, right now. We have an abundance of money right now for time. Can we invest that in short-term items to pick up a point, point and a half, maybe possibly 2, to add to that? I know we have a lot of money, and I know why we borrowed it at this time, because it was the favorable time to do it. I know the feds are going up very shortly. They're playing with the idea, and I bet you within 2 years, it'll be well over 4, the way it's going. And this market cannot sustain the growth it's having now. It's just unbelievable, the growth. So there's got to be an adjustment coming in the next couple of years on this. But can we use this money to invest in short term to pick up a point or 2, maybe more?
The arbitrage rules will allow you to earn the yield on the bonds, which is a 260. The average yield on the bonds, that's the arbitrage yield. So you can earn 260. Good luck trying to earn that during you drawing down on the funds. But if you can invest your heart's delight, all of the proceeds, you're going to have to right out the gate pay off $18 million of short-term notes that are going to mature on October 20th. And those have to be paid off with the bond proceeds. But the rest of the money that you've got, you can invest and earn up to 260. So the town, Bill's been looking at cash flows quite a bit. You're going to look at primarily the school cash flow and how this MSBA grant monies will be coming in, the cash flow associated with that. and consider what you can do with the net cash that you have available, and how long you can invest it, so that when you invest it, you don't have to break it, and you can earn as much as you can. If, to the extent you earned over 2.6%, you would have to rebate that excess to the federal government.
Okay.
But at this point, so long as you spend the money and you've got 2 years to spend it, you can keep all of it, whatever you can earn.
Another question we're talking, I know you mentioned a couple times that usually projects of this time overrun. And according to what we hear now, they're right on project. One of their projects, the general contractor, is in Sharon, the police and fire station. They finished it 3 months early. So I think we have the right team in place there. Joel's out there. He'll make sure of that, believe me. He takes his frustration on the treadmill. I see him every day on the treadmill. But the way we have instruction and the people we have over there, I think we will come in as budgeted, unless there's a catastrophe. They're watching it. This gentleman has many years' experience in this. He will make sure that it'll come and there was money put away for overruns. And it wasn't 5% or 6%, it was a little more just in case. So I honestly believe we will come in. If it is, it will be slightly over, and that's about it. There's a good team out there, too. There's a good building team on that, too. So, as I say, it's been a great day in Stoughton. Great day in Stoughton. The taxpayers benefit on this, too. And maybe, possibly, what we worry about the most of this, and I'm hearing it all over town, the senior citizens. Some of these people are living hand to mouth right now, and maybe we can do something to help these poor people out that are struggling. And I thank you again.
Thank you, Bobby. Mr. Brown?
First, I did read both the S&P and the Moody's report, and it's obviously clear that many factors go into how you arrived, or how we received those ratings, which they're excellent. And also, obviously, the hard work that this team did pursuing the financial interests of the town allowed us to get was it a 2.67, somewhere around that rate?
2.6.
Opposed to 3.3, which was originally planned during the phase of the actual school. Am I correct on that? I'm not a very good numbers guy, so does that sound accurate?
I think it was around 3.5.
So it's a 3.5 what we were looking at. How we arrived at a bond and all those questions, I'm not going to even begin to ask you, because it doesn't mean nothing to me, but what means something to me is what's coming out of my pocket every year, and I'm sure most of the residents at home. So it appears by your charts and by the savings, the numbers initially were best guesstimate based on what our rating was at the time, because of this work. And it looks like, reading these reports, not only this team that did a great job, there are other, this board, town meeting, finance committee, the government's running in a pretty prudent manner, I would imagine. That's what I got by reading the reports. So therefore, I believe that's why the ratings were given. Strong financial back end, good economy, good town budget, and all that stuff comes into play. Is that right? Does that sound correct? Okay, so the numbers that were initially were best guessed, and this is going to be a savings, and it looks like a 14% decrease for most residents that are going to pay less because of this long-term borrowing that we committed to. Does that sound right? Okay, so Stoughton had a model, and I sat on FinCom for a few years, and the chairman of FinCom, he was good. Stoughton was, we borrow now when the rates are low, and you pay back less over the course when you get in. And it makes complete sense, but now it appears that we're even in a better situation than we were even when we were doing those numbers. So to me, that's outstanding. Bottom line, like I said, it's the numbers that the people want to know about, and what it's going to cost us. This 20-year bond is worth $84 million, is that right? With $77 million being paid back, that's an instant savings, correct? Or am I wrong? And please help me if I am.
It's the equivalent of borrowing 84 million at the 269. But because you're getting this large premium handed to you on the day of delivery that's generated in the reoffering of the bonds, we use that to reduce how much you sell. It's being generated by inflated coupons. If you look at how the bonds sold, there's 5% coupons up until the call date, which is in 10 years. After that, there's lower coupon rates, a couple 4s and then 3s. The market right now is bidding with the higher inflated coupon up to the call date and then dropping it after the call date because they don't want to see the bonds, all the bonds that have been refunded in the last 15 years, was because there were high coupons after the call date. In exchange for that higher coupon rate, it's basically a wash, but in exchange for the higher coupon rate, we reduced how many bonds are being sold by the amount of the premium you're getting. So the premium is going to be used to pay project costs in lieu of selling bonds in a like amount. And that's required now under the Governor's Modernization Act because in the last several years, with the expectation that rates were going to go up, we've seen a lot of premiums on bond deals. And in some cases, prior to the Governor's Modernization Act, those were going to the bottom line of the town, and in some cases, they were being used for non-capital purposes. The Governor's Modernization Act wanted to correct that situation across the board in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts at the local level. So it's required. So you're getting 84 million of proceeds in exchange for $77 million worth of bonds. And you're going to be handed $6.5 million in cash in lieu of selling that much extra bonds.
The rest of it was above over here for me, but when you got to the number of the 6.5, now I'm okay, that's great. Was any of this done prior to where we're at now? When was this arranged? And the reason I ask this is because all these numbers that we received beforehand, when did this take place? I mean, we're there now, we're ready, everybody knows we're going to, the reason I'm trying to ask this is the question I'm going to come up with is, we're here, so next tax bill, we're going to start seeing that increase. Is this what we're looking at?
Bill, do you?
Well, for fiscal 18, we're locked, the tax increase is $1 million. So $1 million for fiscal 18 over and above Prop 2.5. If the actual comes in higher, I think the actual is going to be about $1.2 million. So with that extra 200,000 would get added on in fiscal 19 to the actuals. So 18 is, the limit is $1 million. The total debt service is about $1,260,000, I believe, all interest. But we'll be able to cover that within the budget. I looked at the budget today, and we've budgeted, we have excess debt service, so pretty sure we can cover that within the budget, the extra 260,000.
Okay, so is there any further requirements?
I think there's another question in there that you're asking, which is when did the process start? And so a lot of this is time sensitive because there was borrowing that prior to this that was coming due, and so as Cinder had referred to some of the bond anticipation notes that had to be paid off. So this has been a process. I think what these folks have done is accelerate that process because of the nature of the bond market, the nature of interest rates, the nature of our town's needs, and so they had to calculate all of those variables to come up with the decision that they ultimately made. So there are variables, there are different ways to do this, and that process probably started about 2 months ago.
So the exciting news here is because of this effort, there's a huge savings. We're all in agreement with that. And now the money is available, and there's not going to be any delays. And I wanted to ask, well, I got an email from October, I think it's 3rd, that infamous night, from a construction company, so I might as well ask now, are there any contractors, construction companies, vendors, or anything that are concerned or in a situation where they're not getting paid or that they're worried about being paid? Is there any concerns of that nature at this point?
No.
So I'm to believe this email we received on October 3rd from Consigli Construction, that they're comfortable and there's no questions and no worries?
I think they addressed,
I think we got an update of that one, I think.
yeah, I think that consigley email that you received on October 3rd that says that they have no concerns addresses an email that came out in mid-July when your board was in transition. And so that was their response to that original email asking about who was the appointed authority who could sign documents. And so that particular email from mid-July created some confusion. And so consigley wanted to make sure that there was no confusion and that there's never been a concern on their part about ever getting paid. All they wanted to know is, who do we talk to? And there was a transition at that time that back in
All right, so
July.
I didn't understand why the October 3rd.
That was in our
email
favor.
from that
That was in our
construction
favor.
company. So there is no issues, there's no worries.
No, that was just a response. They had apparently been asked if there was an issue, and so they felt that for the benefit of the school building committee and the residents, for that matter, that they would put that issue to rest because there was some members that thought that consigley had concerns, and consigley wanted to make sure that we understood that there were no concerns on their part.
So then I just want to end with, well done by your staff. Cinder, is Cinder, am I right? Cinder. Cinder, yeah. All the committees, the town meeting, everybody had a play in this because clearly there was a collective group in there, and it is an exciting day, and I'm sure the residents at home appreciate the savings and the fact that we're moving forward without any obstacles or concerns of issues. So thank you very much, everybody, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Regan.
Most of the questions I had have been answered, so let me just ask you a couple of, I hope, are small ones. Can you walk us through the timing? We take a vote tonight. Walk us through the timing of what the transaction looks like, when funds are received, theoretically where they go after the bonds are taken down, and then how the disbursement of funds for the various projects happens as an administrative matter. I'm hoping at some point we can get you know, from the town departments the actual disbursement or distribution schedule for the project, so we know. But just the general format for, we borrow the money, now what? So if we sign tonight,
Bond council sent down directly all the closing documents. They consist of a formal vote of the Board of Selectmen. We also need a majority of the Board of Selectmen. We also have the bonds. There's one bond for each maturity that requires the selectmen to sign that. There's arbitrage certificates and signature and no litigation certificates. Once all that's signed, which we would pick it up tomorrow, I'm assuming, hopefully, that you're going to sign all that tonight, and then
I think I see them
Right here in front of me. They're right
got all
here.
of that information, and so that has to be
Got 'em right
signed
here.
and sealed by the town clerk. Once we get that back tomorrow, we distribute parts of it to bond council, parts of it to the paying agent, parts of it to depository trust company, that is going to where the bonds will clear. The bonds are scheduled right now for delivery on Thursday. We've been in touch with the purchaser with regard to wire instructions, to wire the proceeds, some 84 million plus bond dollars to the town at the account that we've been told from the town where the money should go. And from there, the town is going to invest it. The bonds are maturing on Friday, so 18 million, some odd, plus the interest due on that is going to have to come from that same account where the money goes into to be wired to pay the notes that are maturing, to pay those note holders that are going to present those for payment. But the town is going to be able to, by Friday, it can go ahead and start investing the proceeds. It may be that you want to invest them short-term until you look at all the options. I know that the treasurer's office is looking at options with Bill and with Steve, and the team is taking a look at what the options are to invest. They're somewhat limited under Massachusetts law, in terms of how you can invest those, but the best thing you can do is based on the cash flows, and the biggest part as a school is to invest that big chunk based on the cash flow as to how you're going to need the money.
Thank you.
But that's the plan.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then as far as administratively, when the money comes in, Paula will wire out the money, the $18,698,252 to pay off the notes, and she'll do a wire transfer in Munis, and it'll pay those off. And then the money that comes in will be distributed amongst the various projects in Munis, and you'll see that on your article report when it comes out.
So our accounting will allocate those receipts against...
Yeah, I won't make her do it. I'll have her just post it to one account, and then I'll split it up with a journal entry.
So that infamous quarterly report that I bug you about.
That's right, you'll see instead of notes now, you'll see bonds.
These will show up on the
Right.
special appropriations report.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
yep. So,
And we're still putting together we're going to put together a complete financing summary with all the detail of down to the penny of every single aspect of this transaction, so that the town has that for reference through the next 20 years. If there's any questions that come up, it'll have everything in one place. Bond counsel does the same thing in terms of a legal transcript that'll come down. So, the process is going to go on for the next 2 weeks of giving the town everything it needs.
We'll get a closing binder, basically.
Pardon?
We'll basically get a closing binder on the
Correct,
transaction.
correct, from us and from bond counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nastas, I commented on you said last two and a half months that you've been working on this to get all this going?
Yeah.
Well, the last two and a half months, that was under your watch, sir, so I appreciate it very much for this board. You came in and a lot of people questioned the decision of this board to bring you in. This right here has proved that you are a man for the job, to Bill, to Paula, to Sue, to Joe, and the entire employees of this town. Thank you, but most of all residents, but kudos to you, Mr. Nastas, because you just proved a lot of people wrong, so thank you.
Thank you.
We all set with the appointments.
Yeah, I think if you want to move up and do the vote, Bill is also prepared, but we can reschedule it to do an update for the board. Since we tried to keep it a financial theme, we thought we would have Bill update you on the beginning of the budget process and what's involved in that. And so,
Do you want him to give us that before we adopt the finance policy?
it's entirely up to you.
Bill, you okay with that then? Sure. So we'll do that, then we'll vote on both then.
Yeah, are we done with Cinder and her?
Yes, I'm sorry, sir, thank you very much.
We don't have to keep her
On
here.
behalf of the town of Stowe, we appreciate what you've done, so, thank you.
Cinder, thank you very much.
I just want to say I've been tempered in my congratulations. I think the town got a great deal. It's the best one I've seen in a long time because of the size of it. You attracted so much attention to your transaction, and the results are terrific. And I agree with everything you said about the group that helped put this together, because it's been really tedious. And you got this vote to take. We'll pick everything up in the morning. This is a great deal, though, for the town. Congratulations.
Gentlemen, I think these people earn a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, thank you.
I just wanted to point out, Steve hadn't pointed out, that she is a 25-year member of the Finance Committee in the town of Swampscott, the governor's hometown, and a former chairman of the Finance Committee, so she knows her stuff, well, both sides.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, thank you. This is a huge thing, huge. We're gonna take the vote, Fitzy, relax. Just relax.
No, just an update on the budget process. We've started the budget process. Departments are going to be entering their own budgets into Munis, and we've had 3 training sessions already. We'll have 3 more, and it's going to be a level service budget. In other words, you can use last year as a reference point, but the main focus is going to be, what is it going to cost next year to provide the same services as you're providing this year? And it's going to be zero-based, so we're not giving them the numbers. They have to start right from scratch, and they're going to be entering the detail. So oftentimes you might ask, or the Finance Committee might ask, what makes up that line? Well, we're going to have the detail right in there, salaries, expenses, which is going to add up to that line. So at any time, we'll be able to put it on the screen, give you reports as to what makes up a particular line in the budget. So, and it's going to be within Munis. We won't have a big folder full of notes that we have to shuffle through. We just bring it right up on the screen. So that's a good thing. The grants, we're going to present the grants a little differently. I think we're going to be, have a better disclosure on the grants. We were trying to put a minus line in the operating budget in some of the, and it just has not worked out. What happened was the actual payroll started getting charged for the grants, got charged to the operating budgets, and it created some not so appropriate looking expense reports. So we're going to do a little differently. We're going to keep the grants, employees charged to grants, we're going to keep them out of the operating budget, and we're going to have a separate presentation for each department's grants in the appendices. So trying to be more transparent, that's why we want to enter the detail. So if anybody wants to see what people are spending money on or plans on spending money on, they'll be able to see it clearly, so.
Mr. Regan, any questions for Mr. Rowe?
No, thank you.
Mr. Cohen? No. Mr. Sullivan? Nope. Mr. Brown? Bill, thank you very much. Consent agenda, gentlemen. Consent agenda B, adoption of the financial policy. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda B?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we table consent agenda item B at least till our next scheduled meeting for October 17th, just so I can have another week and a half just to read the document. Oh, I'm sorry, November 7th.
That could take an effect on us, Bill, or does that have to be done right now?
I'll second that.
The bonds are due to be delivered this week, so.
All right, no
We need a
problem.
vote. We need an up and down
That's the
vote.
bonds bill. I'm talking about the adoption of the financial policy.
Oh, the policies, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't have the agenda in front of me. Well, the policies could wait, yeah. Policies, yeah, you probably want time to review those.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Brown?
No.
I'm going to say no, too. Okay. Motion to accept consent agenda B. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
No?
3-2.
Wait, one more, I make a motion that we refer the three policies, the investment policy statement, the OPEB trust investment policy statement, and the debt policy statement to the Finance Committee for their consideration and recommendation.
I'll second that because I know for a fact that FinCom hasn't had an opportunity to see any of these documents yet. So I'll second that motion.
That was, Mr. Chairman, that was part of my reason for voting. I've had a chance to look at these policies. I have a couple of questions about the policies, such as the concentration ratios that are in here that are worthy for the board to discuss, and some of the reporting requirements. For example, there's reporting requirements in them for reports not to the Board of Selectmen. I think the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee should be getting the quarterly reports. That's not part of the policy statement. I think the Finance Committee should be getting these performance reports if they're part of the policy. So I think, and there may be some other ways to improve these if you think of those improvements, that consulting with the Finance Committee will help, because as the policies are being implemented, it is better to have them followed and implemented in a way everybody is part of than to play catch-up after the policy, just to make a better policy. That's my motion, to refer them to Finance Committee for recommendations prior to the vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'll weigh in. Finance Committee doesn't set policies. They don't create policies. The Board of Selectmen does. This financial team is recommending these policies. I don't see why we would stand in the way of them. In fact, I'd like to know, Mr. Onassis, how long these policies have been in place. And has the Finance Committee ever even seen one of these policies before?
Well, I'd say it this way, that these policies were recommended to us by the esteemed guest that was here earlier in consultation with other communities, folks from MMA. Much of this is standard policy in most communities. our team evaluated these. We had to, as part of our review with S&P, have some type of policies in place. These are the ones that we chose. They certainly can be worked on by the Board of Selectmen. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the board. Suggesting maybe changes or other things, I don't think anybody on the financial team would have a problem with that. But as of right now, these are the policies that we've committed to. If you gentlemen, as the policy board, want to recommend change, we certainly could contemplate changes at some point. I think you should start with something. Every policy can be improved.
That's correct, and that's
This
my
is a good
point.
start.
My point is that these policies were recommended by the finance team.
Correct.
We're a Board of Selectmen, a Board of Volunteers. The Finance Committee is a Board of Volunteers. If they have suggestions, they can make those, and those always can be revised or added. There's no reason to hold these policies up to allow the Finance Committee to take a look at these. So if it's good enough for the finance team that gets paid to do these jobs, then it's certainly good enough for me to support that. And any recommendations the Finance Committee may have, they can put it through the Board of Selectmen if they need to, or send it to your office directly. So that's where I stand on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my motion was to refer it to the Finance Committee
I said
for consultation.
Mr. O'Regan, I heard you said you wanted to defer without us voting on these, correct?
Vote on the bonds.
That's it, that was your suggestion? Defer, and I said I didn't agree with that. So, and I think there was a motion on the table to accept them. So you were just making that during the discussion, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so we made some discussion, I thought it's good. That's where I stand on it, so if you take a vote, it's up to you. Thank you.
We did take a vote, 3-2 on the first one.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respectfully just request that we revisit that vote. And again, I would just like another 2 weeks to review the policy myself. This was a lot of information we received Friday afternoon, including 100-plus pages of the largest debt issuance in town's history, which I'm prepared to vote on. But the financial policy, which is a separate matter, I'd appreciate a little bit more time to review it. In the past, this board has granted certain members many months just to review meeting minutes. I'm just asking for another 2 weeks to review a 30-page financial policy that this board is about to implement that we've literally had 2 days to review. I'm just asking for 2 more weeks, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, let's take a look at what we've just heard. We've just heard that these policies were presented to us. We got them, I think, Friday afternoon. So today is Monday. We've been told, and I respect the sources of the information, but we've been told these policies were developed on advice and information from other communities, from the MMA, which is the Massachusetts Municipal Association, and from our team. So there's an awful lot of input going into these policies. I think what Mr. Sullivan is suggesting is we all ought to have a chance to take more than one business day to read 23 pages of policies and understand them that has come to us from a bunch of sources. It's our decision to make a policy. I expect, even if there's changes, that they're going to be, relatively minor changes to make it improvement. It's not an unreasonable request, given the volume of this material, to ask for a little time to look at it and review it. And I will say that I don't recall one time when another member of this board has asked for additional time to review minutes or policy proposals that have been made that I have voted against allowing any member who requests time the chance to review the materials before making a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I said the policy to all of you on this board. I've heard nothing back from any of you on this board, and they've had it for over 2 weeks. Excuse me, I did get a recognition back from you about the public comments, adopting the school's version with some amendments and revisions. I've heard nothing from either 2 selectmen who oppose the vote that I believe we took. I think the vote was 3-2. I don't
Yes,
think there's any
the vote was taken 3-2.
further discussion needed. So I want to make note of that there's been a policy sitting in your box for 2 weeks at least, and I haven't heard word back. So would you request, do you want another 2 weeks or 2 months, or is that, do you have any
I've read your policy, and I think
Right.
it's excellent, and I'm happy the schools gave that to you.
So you
It's on
didn't-
tomorrow night's agenda.
Is it on tomorrow night's
Prepared to
agenda?
support
it. It is.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But so that's great. So then we'll address that tomorrow night. But I don't think there's any reason to not adopt these, as I had said initially, based on the fact that we're taking I'm not a financial expert. I don't know how many of you guys on this board are. So I'm going to rely on the experts we pay, which we like to always say we do, and let's hope they've done the right thing. And if there are changes that need to be done, it's not a big thing. It's not like it's going to be something you can't amend or revise, and if the Finance Committee picks up on something that doesn't look good, I believe these were a great, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rowe, these were part of the rating with Moody and S&P, am I wrong? Were they questioned, was a question posed to the town financial staff, not FinCom, not the Board of Selectmen, if policies were in place for financial lending and borrowing, things of this nature, excuse me.
The financial advisor indicated that if policies and certain policies and procedures were in place with regard to debt, investments, et cetera, that would be a credit towards the bond rating. It would be a credit. Very good. So the rating agencies like to have policies and procedures.
So weighed heavily on the decision. So for us now to say that, well, we're not going to adopt them, there might be some problem, it would be almost saying like it didn't, the work that you did in the bond that we got or the rate that we got. I think the vote has been taken. I'm going to ask you to close the matter on that, and thank you.
It's been
Can
closed.
I just say one really quickly? This board isn't a rubber stamp. It's up to us to review policy that comes across our desks. Something we just received on Friday. I understand, and I give great credit to the people that worked on those policies, but I'm not going to just rubber stamp something for the sake of doing it. It's up to us to review it. And I respectfully asked for 2 weeks. I'm not trying to politicize this policy. I respectfully requested it, and if you guys want to vote it down,
We already voted for Ms. Mike.
Exactly,
Mr.
so-
Cohen,
Let's move on
your
to
mic's
the
not on.
bonds.
I got this Friday. And I was on the phone today with various people with questions to ask. My questions were answered. Granted, I'm retired, I can look at this. I looked at this all weekend, went over it. Took me about an hour to get through it. Some items I underlined. I got questions from Mr. Onassis today. I got questions from other people. I went to other towns. I took the time to do this. Is it fair for me to say I didn't do this and I don't trust what you people do? You're the experts that we hired to do this, and I think you did a great job. And I'm going to give you my vote of confidence by saying I'm going to vote this because you did your job. And it helped get us a plus on the bond rating, and $6.5 million was part of this, heavily on this too. So I thank you, and I'm voting the same way I am. I'm not changing my vote. I took the time this week, and I had the time. Sometime I didn't, but at night...
order, Mr. Chairman, we already took the vote. I
You
think
did,
we
it's
can just
done.
move on
That's it.
at this point.
All right. I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Stowe, Massachusetts, certify the meeting the board held on October 16, 2017, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified, in which quorum was present, and the following votes were unanimously passed, which appear upon the official record of the board of my custody. Vote that the sale of $77,330,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2017 bonds of the town dated October 19, 2017. The bonds, the Ms. Rowe Financial Inc., at the price of $83,906,327.49. Actually, interest, and hereby approve the confirmation. The bonds shall be payable by October 15th of the years, and the principal amounts of the bearing interest of set of rates as the following. Paula, do I have to read all these numbers? Okay, no problems. 2018, $3,135,000, rate 5%. 2019, $3,175,000, 5%. These will all be 5% for now, hold on. 2020, $260,000 at 5%. 2021, $3,300,000 at 5%. 2022, $3,165,000 at 5%. 2023, $3,285,000 at 5%. 2024, $3,410,000 at 5%. 2025, $3,545,000 at 5%. 2026, $3,635,000 at 5%. 2027, $3,730,000 at 5%. 2028, $3,820,000 at 3%. 2029, $3,925,000 at 3%. 2030, $4,050,000 at 4%. 2031, $4,200,000 at 4%. 2032, $4,325,000 at 3%. 2033, $4,425,000 at 3%. 2034, $4,545,000 at 3%. 2035, $4,670,000 at 3%. 2036, $4,800,000 at 3%. 2037, $4,930,000 at 3%. Further voted in the connection which the marketing, the sales of the bonds, participation, distribution of notice of sales of preliminary official, Selectmen dated October 4, 2017. And the final official statement dated October 12, 2017. The official statement, each in which such form be approved that town treasurer be hereby ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subjected to recommendations and opinions of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement. Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be hereby authorized executive to deliver continuing disclosure undertaken in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form that may be approved by the bonds council and town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by referencing the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the treasurer to establish a post, show federal tax compliances, procedures in such form as the town and the bonds council deem significant, or such procedures are currently in place to review, update, and set procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the bonds. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and town treasurer be hereby authorized to take all such actions and successive delivery, such certification receipts and other documents as they are determined by then or any other them to be necessary convenience to carry into the effects of provision in the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken in the meeting open to the public and no vote was taken by secret ballot. That a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda of the meeting. The agenda included the adoption of the vote above votes. Was filled with the town clerk and copy therefore posted in the manner visible to the public in all hours in or on municipal building of the office of the clerk. Town clerk is located in its applicable in accordance with the alternative method of notice prescribed and approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03(2), Section B, at least 48 hours not including Saturdays and Sundays and legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remain the post at the time of the meeting, that no deliberation or discussion in the connection with the sale of the bonds were taken in executive session in all accordance with the general law C-30A 18-25 as amended. Now, gentlemen, consent agenda A. Is there a motion to sign the bonds for the borrowing?
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Congratulations, gentlemen. Old and new business.
No, you got Joseph Gibbons and
That's been all done. That was already done, Joe, Bobby.
Joe Gibbons.
That was all done already. They did all that.
Oh, they did all that?
They did all that. Anything for old and new business? Mr. O'Regan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that the policy on town council that I circulated in June, waiting for comments, particularly from Selectman Brown, that I haven't heard any comments on, that policy be put on the board's agenda for the first meeting in November.
Reggie, can you take care of that?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cole?
Standing in town all Saturday, the tragedy we had up in Avon is a great possibility right here in Washington Street, walking across that crosswalk. And there should be a strict limit of travel from the library to Shaw's at 25 miles an hour. Just sitting there and watching those people that you had to take their hand and cross the street, that's nothing but a death trap, or a major accident, or probably maybe death will occur on that area. People do not stop. One lane is blocked. Can't see the other person walking. It's a death trap that got to be fixed. And I think this should be put on the next meeting. I'd like to have the police chief here. I'd like to have the engineering department here. I'd like to have that looked at immediately, and something to do with those flashing lights that no one pay attention to. It's dangerous, it's pathetic. And maybe we can put a police officer out there that could write some tickets. But I think Randolph installed 25 miles all over the town. But in that center, there's got to be a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. God forbid. It is going to happen, folks. It's a death trap ready to happen. And that's all you got to do is sit out there from 10 o'clock to 11:30 and watch what happens there. People, they laugh at you. This is not a laughing matter. This is a serious matter that someone is going to get killed there.
Okay, so Mr. Cohen, before we do that, can we have the town manager look into it, talk to everybody before we just try to make a vote?
No, I want them here. It's beyond talk. We have talked about this, David, till we're blue in the face.
I understand, but
Now
we gotta-
it's action going to take
Huh?
place.
We'll put it on the next agenda.
On the
That's-
agenda then,
that's
Reggie.
fine. No problem.
You have to sit and watch what goes on there. Maybe
Got
you
it.
and I one day will buy a hot dog, and we'll sit there and watch people go by. You can come too, Fitzy. You're
Buy
the,
me the hot dog?
I'll buy you the hot
Okay,
dog.
I need more than one, though.
But it's really, folks, it's dangerous. All right, it's dangerous, and we talk about it and talk about it.
Down on the agenda.
Now we got to do action on it, one way or the other.
For the 17th.
I'd like to ask if you could consider putting on for discussion in the November meeting, the first November meeting, a look at maybe creating a land committee to take a look at, identify, look at potential properties that aren't being used or could be used for whatever, town property that we have. And I'd like to suggest that involves civilians as well as a couple members of this board and maybe some other boards, and some staff, Mr. Anastas, some primary staff that would be, we don't want to run into a situation as we did with some questions on buildable property opposed to property that could have been but wasn't, and maybe if we look at the appropriate staff being on that, that might be something that we can, help going forward with, getting some unfound money, if you will.
Reggie, could you?
I've mentioned it a million times, $65 million in
That's on for
property.
the
So
7th.
if you could, and you're going to have to forgive me because I'm not feeling well, so I'm going to excuse myself from the meeting.
That's okay.
really-
Sullivan, do you have anything else?
Okay.
Mr. Onassis, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
We have-
Gentlemen, I will not be here tomorrow, so if you guys have to need to reach me after 7:30, I'll be available. I will be at a wedding till then.
You got to sign these,
We'll
Peter.
sign them. Hold on, we'll sign them. Thank you. We'll sign them in the morning. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Can people be here in the morning?